Dear friends, welcome to another episode of Military Ops. In this video, we will discuss President Donald Trump's plan to detain up to 30,000 illegal immigrants at the infamous Guantanamo Bay prison in Cuba, a military detention facility where U.S. civil laws do not apply. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, do it now and activate the notification bell so you don't miss any updates. On January 29th, President Donald Trump signed a memorandum ordering federal agencies to prepare the Guantanamo Bay Naval Base in Cuba to accommodate up to 30,000 deported immigrants. This announcement came as part of a series of executive actions aimed at tightening immigration control and removing illegal immigrants from U.S. territory. The decision was justified as a response to the increasing migrant population in detention centers across the United States, as well as the difficulties faced by the government in repatriating individuals to certain countries. This was recently the case with Colombia, which refused to accept 2 military planes carrying deported illegal immigrants. According to Trump, many of those detained are considered dangerous and could not be sent back to their countries of origin, either because these nations refused to accept them or because they would pose a threat if they returned. The newly appointed Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth, publicly defended the measure, arguing that Guantanamo would be the ideal location to hold migrants until they could be definitively deported. He also emphasized that the facility's infrastructure could be quickly expanded to accommodate the new demand. To understand the magnitude of this decision, it is essential to revisit the history of Guantanamo Bay. Since 1903, the United States has maintained a military base in the region as a result of a treaty signed with Cuba following the Spanish-American War. However, the site became globally known after 2002, when the Bush administration turned it into a detention center for terrorism suspects captured as part of the War on Terror. Since its inception, the detention facility has faced severe criticism for human rights violations, torture, and indefinite detentions without trial. Over the decades, the facility has housed more than 780 prisoners, many of whom were never formally charged. Despite attempts by the Obama and Biden administrations to close the center, Guantanamo continues to operate, albeit with a significantly reduced number of detainees. Now, with Trump's new order, the facility could see a resurgence in its use, this time as a detention center for migrants. Guantanamo Bay is a U.S. military base covering an area of 72 square kilometers in the southeasternmost part of Cuba. A large facility composed of multiple detention complexes, including the infamous X-ray, Delta, and Echo camps, which were used to detain terrorism suspects after the September 2001 attacks. Currently, the base's infrastructure includes housing facilities, medical centers, solitary confinement areas, and interrogation chambers. Many detainees have been held in small cells with severe restrictions on mobility and communication with the outside world. Due to the precarious conditions of these facilities, they have been widely criticized by human rights organizations, which have condemned practices such as sleep deprivation, prolonged confinement, and interrogation methods considered to be torture. The base also includes administrative areas, military tribunals, and exercise yards. Over the years, there have been multiple attempts to modernize the facilities to meet minimum detention standards, but the structures still reflect their controversial past and remain highly secretive, with restricted access for the press and external observers. With the new immigration detention policy, the U.S. government will need to adapt the facilities to accommodate a larger number of people, which will require significant investment in infrastructure. This raises concerns about how these migrants will be treated, and most importantly, what rights they will have while detained at the base. It is important to remember that this is a military facility where U.S. civil laws do not apply. In fact, this was precisely why Guantanamo Bay was chosen to hold terrorism suspects. The Trump administration's decision sparked immediate reactions both inside and outside the United States, with human rights groups warning about the risk of creating a legal black hole where migrants would lack proper access to justice and humanitarian services. The primary concern is that this measure could reinforce a narrative that equates migrants with terrorists, turning Guantanamo into a detention site without proper legal oversight. Experts also highlight the logistical challenges involved in implementing this measure, given that Guantanamo is a highly remote base where supply chains and operations already face significant logistical difficulties. Maintaining a population of 30,000 migrants would require a massive expansion of infrastructure, potentially generating costs in the billions. Additionally, the decision could have diplomatic implications, particularly with Cuba. Since the Cuban Revolution, the government in Havana has considered the American presence in Guantanamo an illegal occupation and has repeatedly demanded the return of the territory. Using the base to detain migrants could reignite tensions between the two countries. The use of Guantanamo as a migrant detention center represents a drastic shift in U.S. immigration policy. While the government argues that this measure is necessary to protect national security and manage deportations, the humanitarian and legal risks are extremely high. How will this policy impact the international image of the United States? And more importantly, what will happen to the rights of migrants detained in Guantanamo? And if you are not yet subscribed to the channel, subscribe now and turn on notifications so you don't miss any updates.